Let's talk about response, one of the most important fundamentals for trumpet players. After all, what's more important than putting the trumpet to your face and getting the pitch that you intended? In fact, I practice this every day. It's the one basic that never leaves my fundamental routine. And the way that I practice this is with air attacks. Articulation can be a distraction, or worse, it can make the airflow inconsistent when you're practicing response. So I prefer to just remove the articulation entirely and work with air attacks. Ha. You could think of them like that. Ha. Instead of da. When practicing air attacks, the consistency of the air supply is the most important part. So I encourage you to think of the rectangle of air that you'll use. When the air begins, you're using exactly the same amount as you intend to use in the middle of the note. Some things that you might hear in younger players are the blat sound, where they build up air pressure behind the tongue and then release it, and it sounds something like this. If you're a band director, you'll be familiar with this sound. That's caused by an unpredictable airflow. They've just built up a lot of air. They pile it all through all at once. This habit probably developed when they were much younger and they weren't confident any sound would come out at all. And then you've got other students who are going to start with a very hesitant quantity of air. They're going to sneak in. They're going to make sure they have the right pitch first before they produce an audible volume. That will sound something like this. I'm sure you're familiar with that sound as well. It's best to strike a balance and begin with the air that you intend to carry through the rest of the note. So when I practice air attacks, I'm always trying to provide that rectangle of air. In fact, the only way I think you could do this exercise wrong is to not provide the right air. Everything else is experimentation and trying to figure out what exactly are the variables that produce the intended pitch. But as long as you're providing the right air underneath, you'll be learning from your mistakes on those variables. You'll be able to take a scientific mindset, hypothesize about how it should sound, how it should feel, observe the result, maybe make some conclusions, go back and do it again, always with that wonderful rectangle of air. I recommend using a metronome with this exercise just so the student knows exactly at what time the air is expected. So if you've got your metronome on 80, you breathe for one beat and then you release the air. And that way there's no doubt about when the air should begin. Speaking of hypothesizing about what it takes to create a particular pitch, there's a bunch of variables that go into trumpet playing that you could think about. Once you have the proper air supply, you could think about how much you're rolling your lips. Rolling in tends to produce higher notes. Rolling out a little bit tends to produce lower notes. You could think about firming the corners, puckering the lips a little bit to allow more soft lip to vibrate in the airstream. You could think about tongue placement, which we're going to talk about in another video because that's a whole topic by itself. But feel free to experiment with the different variables of trumpet playing to try to find the most comfortable setting for each pitch with the given rectangle of air. I will include my response exercise with this video, or you're free to pick a few notes of your own every day. You could look at whatever solo you're working on. You could look at the tricky entrances in your band repertoire, and if you practice air attacks on those pitches that you have to enter on, I guarantee it'll improve things. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.